into law this week by President Biden. And it was an amazing, amazing thing. Now, we used to call it Endless Frontiers. I like that name, but people thought it had something to do with covered wagons, so we didn't use it. So it's now called the Chips and Science Bill. When I wrote it, we called it Endless Frontier, but now it's the same basic bill. And it makes the largest investment in American innovation and manufacturing in decades, and will bring major federal investment to every corner of New York. That's especially true for the $50 billion plus.
That provision, which has been exceeding the legislation's biggest revenue raiser, will now let those companies depreciate their equipment costs more quickly. The new tax is expected to apply to around 150 companies with income exceeding $1 billion. Still, other revisions are possible, but the package has already passed from the Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough said the provision could remain requiring union-scale wages if energy efficiency projects are to qualify for tax credits. Democrats were awaiting the parliamentarian's decision on other issues, including requirements that pharmaceutical companies pay penalties if they raise prices above inflation for prescriptions. The Democrats are using special rules that let them overcome GOP opposition and pass the package without needing the 60 votes that most bills require. Under those procedures, the parliamentarian can force provisions to be dropped that break rules, requiring them to chiefly aimed at changing the federal budget, not making new policy. Folks, there's a new update on the $1,400 stimulus check for seniors. Social Security, SSI, and SDI recipients can expect to receive a monthly benefit boost of up to $200. That's because Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren are now pushing for a new Social Security reform bill. This plan will improve benefits for all recipients, so be sure to watch to the end of the video to learn how to receive the stimulus check. Now, the first payment will be made at the start of the month on September 1st, when the second one will be made at the end of the month on September 30th. SSI recipients, everybody, will be getting not one but two payments in September, totaling around $1,600. According to the Social Security Administration, the two payments will each be worth around $841 and will be given to individuals and eligible recipients. Most payments throughout the year are given once a month, and exceptions to this are in January, May, and October. Right now, Social Security payments are set to increase in 2023 due to increasing inflation across the United States. Recipients are taxed on their benefits, meaning increased payments could shoot them into a higher tax bracket, earning them less than before the increase. Social Security beneficiaries could also see a 10.5% increase in their payments in 2023, driven by rising inflation. And according to the Senior Citizens League, that means the average monthly retiree benefit, which is currently $1,600, will increase by about $175. Mary Johnson, an analyst for the organization, said those figures could be slightly higher if inflation runs hot in the coming months, with a possible cost of living increase of 11.4%. If inflation cools, that increase may be only 2 to 9%.
In entrepreneurship, this bill delivers job-creating hubs in every corner across the country so that more communities can participate in research and development. And this bill empowers our nation to push the boundaries of science with investments that powers America's preeminence in both basic research and next-generation technologies. In doing so, American dominance in the industries of the future for decades to come. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. This legislation is a resounding victory for the American people. Indeed, the final package contains a number of key provisions from our America Competes Act on the Democratic side, which were not included in the Senate bill. It was House Democrats who secured ironclad guardrails on the CHIPS investment so that the federal funding benefits American workers and interests, not our competitors overseas. It was House Democrats who delivered historic funding to transform our nation's research capacity, powering decades of discovery at the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and National Institutes of Standards. It was House Democrats who won smart, strategic investments in clean energy and industries of the future, supporting renewable energy, combating the climate crisis, and developing cutting-edge technologies. And it was House Democrats who fought to broaden participation in the innovation economy, building a STEM workforce that better reflects the beautiful diversity of our nation while bringing recompete grants, thank you, Mr. Kilmer, to persistently distressed communities across the nation. I thank our distinguished chairwoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, for making so much of that possible. Thank you, Madam Chair. Throughout the process of crafting the CHIPS and Science Act, the Congress has approached this work in a proud bipartisan spirit, as was witnessed by Mr. Lucas's beautiful presentation to the Rules Committee yesterday. This legislation was assembled with input from negotiators from both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol. It was a product of the committees. In the Senate, the bill earned 14 Republican senators' votes for final passage. And here in the House, our American Competes Act was rooted in bipartisan bills with broad support in the Congress and in the country, as I mentioned, 6 intact Republican bills.
Mr. Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the measure under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 6450, the SCORE for Small Business Act of 2022. America's nearly 30 million small businesses represent more.
In the end of August, or the pause would be extended further. The president has said in the past that he supports canceling up to $10,000 in student loan debt. When lawmakers mentioned student loans, the president said he's asking aides to explore his options. This is a signal to lawmakers that he may be willing to go farther than he pledged during his campaign. One of the lawmakers that met with Biden told reporters they're looking at different options on what they can do, on forgiving it entirely. That was our request. Now, there is already an August 31st deadline that has been set, just as early voting will be starting in several states ahead of the midterm elections. Now, the ongoing public message that the Biden administration is looking into, and officials in the Biden administration have been examining whether the president has the authority through executive action to forgive federal student loan debt, since the president took office more than a year ago. Canceling student loan debt would actually depend on whether a group or individual challenges the action. What are your thoughts on this, everybody? Should President Biden cut down student loan debt? Folks, the good news is that many people will be receiving a $2,000 stimulus check this month. To know if you're eligible for this $2,000 stimulus payment, watch until the end of the video. The Social Security Administration has announced that nearly $6,000 in new monthly benefits can actually be claimed by millions of people. The IRS has just sent out over 78 million payments actually. So watch until the end of the video because we're going over a lot of information about Social Security, stimulus checks, SSI, and SSDI. There's a lot of good news to talk about. So folks, a senior citizen advocacy group has estimated that Social Security benefits could increase by 8.9% in January of next year. On the surface, that may sound cheer-worthy, but the mechanics behind the potential boost carry more bad news than good news. The advocacy group released its estimate after the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its March 2022 inflation report. That report showed 3 primary measures of inflation, rising between 8.1% and 9.4% over the past year. Inflation, or rising prices, is the driver of Social Security COLA. The purpose, everybody, for the COLA is to protect the purchasing power of retirement benefits.